All right, we are live. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of The Context. It is August 21st. Fall is kind of coming, at least for us here in Northern California. My kids are starting school today, so it feels like we're really back into it. Though I guess I'm sure for our friends in Europe, they're probably still on vacation because, damn it, they always are on vacation. Those lucky bastards. Okay, well, we have a. I know, right? I saw it like,
Make the whole month off.
Yeah. Exactly. August. We have an awesome show for you today. We're going to have two presentations that we're going to really talk about MCP management quite a bit. So I think it'll be an interesting discussion. Just as a reminder, and we are moving rapidly towards the MCP Dev Summit in Europe. We have closed submissions. We have over 106, 108, something like that submissions. And there's actually people still calling me and texting me and LinkedIning me, trying to get their talks considered. I literally spent most of yesterday reviewing amazing sets of talks, tons of case studies, tons of talks about security, tons of talks about OAuth, tons of talks about registry, talks about things like tool calling, especially like dynamic tool calling. I think it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be really hard to whittle it down. I'm sitting here looking at the floor plan, trying to find a little bit of room, so maybe we can get a few more talks into a third track. We were initially planning 2 tracks, so lots of work. Tickets are starting to sell really fast. It was kind of, I guess it was when it first came out, there was like a burst, and then it kind of goes slow. But now, as we're getting closer, I'm seeing like every week we're selling more tickets. So the conference is pretty limited on space. So if you want to come, I would start to say now it's time to start getting worried about getting a spot. When we did San Francisco, it was kind of a last push. And then about 2 weeks before it came, we sold out. And then there was just hundreds of emails asking me for seats and tickets, which I cannot do because we do not have room. So if you're coming, you want to be there, you need to be there, it's critical for you to be there. Just get your tickets now, so you're not the one trying to hope somebody cancels. I've already booked my flights and hotel room too, so I feel really ready, which is odd for me. All right. If you haven't been paying attention, we have been hitting all sorts of open source and closed source products the last couple of weeks, just great demos of different things that can do MCP security, different tools for building MCP agents. We had a great talk about a universal tool calling protocol that was kind of an alternative to MCP last week. So lots of good stuff, lots of stuff going on in the community. We would love to have more of you talking about what you're doing with MCP. You've built an MCP server. You think you've got an awesome MCP server. Please consider joining us, presenting on the context, submitting a talk. There are so many great topics. The next couple of weeks first of all, next week we're taking a week off, a break. So we are going to be off. I am out, and I think Darren might also be out. So we've blocked next week as a week off, and then we're rolling right back in with talks beginning on the 4th. Today we were actually supposed to have a talk from the PayPal team, but they have to pull out. They had to push that back. So they've come back and asked for a couple more weeks before they can present. So we were really lucky to have one of our co-founders, Craig Jellick, step in to take that slot. So Craig is going to introduce a project that our team has been working on called the Obot MCP Gateway. He's the head of engineering on it. So he'll share all about that open source project. So if you're not familiar with the context, we move really fast. This is we keep it under an hour every time. We usually have 2 talks. These talks are 20 minutes. If you have questions, please ask them in the chat on whatever format you're watching, and we will do our best to get your questions asked of the founders and engineers and developers and experts who are here on the talk. So with that, let's get started. Our first talk today is from the team behind ContexaAI. Rupesh, Raj, and Akshay, his co-founder, are going to be here talking really about their belief. I think if I sum it up, MCP, all the things, like they're going to talk about how easy it is to build MCPs, how easy it is to manage MCPs, and kind of the platform they've built around it. So super excited to have Rupesh and Akshay joining us from Mumbai and to share Contexa. So with that, guys, let's get transitioned over to you.
Hey, thanks, Shannon. Thanks for having us here to present what we are building. Hi, everyone. I am Rupesh, and I am building ContexaAI. We love ourselves to be called as the Firebase for MCP servers. We'll dive deep why we, want to call ourselves the Firebase of MCP servers. But let's start with a brief introduction of myself and Akshay. So we are the founders of Contexa. I'm the CEO, and Akshay is the CTO, handles everything related to tech. Both of us have been building AI agents since the last 2 years. We are currently building Contexa AI. We truly, truly believe that the agent economy is here and it's going to stay and it's going to revamp everything, every code that has been written up till now. Our motto is very, very simple, that MCP is all you need. It truly has all the qualities to revolutionize the agent economy. And also, we both of us love cricket. So if there's anyone who wants to discuss cricket separately, please do join our Discord. We love to talk about cricket. Now, jumping back to what our presentation is all about. As I mentioned, 2024 saw a transition where agents started coming out of prototypes and they started becoming hardened systems. And we'll slowly see agents transform from the swarm kind of thing to become full-fledged agent economy, where these agents will be able to transfer resources amongst them, make transactions. They'll also be able to establish trust, persistent identity. All of these things will come for these agents. And this sort of warrants that every online service will need to have an agentic interface. They'll have to expose an agentic interface. What I mean by that is you will have to expose an interface that is very easy or that makes it very easy for an AI agent to interact with your service. Just as in the 2000s, every business needed to have a website, and in the 2010s, they needed to have a mobile application so that they don't lose out on users. The same is going to happen in the 2020s, where if you do not have an agentic interface, you're definitely going to lose big time. And we'll slowly see a transition where, from GUI, it will all be led to a conversational or maybe some sort of a different interface. But we will definitely see this transition, and there also will be a competitive mandate. Like if your competitor is doing that, you'll have to do that. I've also written a blog about it. You can go visit it. It's on my Substack. But how do we get there? So for every service to have kind of a truly agentic interface, there needs to be four things that interface should solve. Like it should be able to handle structured intent, which is being sent out by an agent. That interface should be easily discoverable, or at least all the tools that are there in the interface should be easily discoverable. And the agent should be able to dynamically decide when to use which of the services that is being exposed by the interface, and the execution should be secure. So authentication and authorization should be taken well care of. And boom, MCP is kind of the perfect solution to it. It gives you a plug and play integration. So you don't have to, basically, once you expose your service as an MCP server, any AI agent can interact with it if it implements the MCP client. It can discover tools while interacting with your service right away in runtime. And there's always two-way communication that actually basically makes MCP the go-to protocol. Like, your service can interact with the agent, your agent can interact with your service. But MCP at the end of the day is just a protocol, right? Like if you start implementing MCP, you start incurring or you start to discover there are various problems or there are a lot of nuances to it. You first have to understand the SDK, then you have to write the server code, then, wiring up authentication. You have to also implement tracing and logging so that you can debug your servers. And after doing all of these things, you finally are able to create an MCP server. But wait, you need to use that server as well, right? So you also need a client to test that server. So you can go to Claude, Cursor, etc. There's no inbuilt sort of client baked in the platform right itself where you're creating the MCP server, right? So you have to juggle between services. You're creating a server somewhere, you are hosting it somewhere else, and then you're testing it somewhere else, and you're managing all the logs somewhere else. Everything is scattered. And that kinds of decreases the efficiency of the process a lot. And what if, let's say, if you want to combine tools from multiple servers into one? That again is a huge headache. Like we saw, just implementing one server is so tough. Leave aside the question of implementing tools from multiple server. That is where we come into the picture. What Firebase did for mobile application development, they gave backend as a service, right? So you don't have to worry about creating your backend. They gave you database, notification services, authentication, everything just in one place. And they kind of abstracted a lot of things, so you did not have to write a lot of code. We're doing this similar thing for MCP servers. It's a one-stop platform that lets you ship production-ready MCP servers without actually worrying about the plumbing. The 4 pain points that we solve for are basically MCP server creation, testing, deployment, and in the future, we'll also let people monetize their creations. This is a little bit glimpse of what the Contexa platform is, but the gist basically is that it lets you create your first MCP server in under 5 minutes. We have plug and play integrations for all the common MCP servers like Notion, Gmail, etc. But the main point is you can directly convert your APIs into an MCP server from a platform as well. Hosting and security are taken care of. There's also a built-in chat client for you to test out your servers. And you also take care of logging and tracing of your servers. So you can debug your servers very, very easily. The pricing is very simple. There's a free tier for hobby devs. You can just log into our platform. It's available right now. Just log in and start creating your servers right away. For some serious folks who actually want to create servers or customize their MCP servers or create custom servers, there is a builder tier, which is $50 per month. And then there are tiers for SMBs and enterprises. There are some really, really exciting features coming up, which is agent creation, where you'll be able to create agents inside MCP servers as well. So these servers will become agentic themselves. We are also going to introduce prompts and resources very, very soon in the server creation process. And we are going to launch our SDK as well. So be it any framework that you're working with, anything, any other, other place where you're creating your agents, just include our SDK and you'll be able to access all of the MCP servers created on Contexa right there in your agent. Cool, guys. We have now reached the demo time, but before we move on to the demo, I would want you guys to just scan these QR codes. Do follow us on X, join our Discord community, and here's our website QR code as well. Do try the platform. I am now going to hand it over to Akshay for the demo. Thank you.
Thank you, Rupesh. Yes. So we are available on platform.contexai.com. So if you visit our website, you can find the platform URL. So once you log in, you will land up on the server page, like our directory page. This is a fairly small directory we have, and we have some curated and well-tested MCP servers templates which are readily available for you guys to use. So let's say if you want to use Notion MCP server, you can simply search for the Notion MCP server. And once you click on that MCP server, you will find all the details in one page, like who created this server, what is the Git repo, what is the code, what is the underlying code which is getting used for deploying this particular MCP server. Even if you can go ahead and find what are the tools available in that particular MCP server. You can find its overview, like what is the description, like what are all things taken care in this particular MCP server. And once you are comfortable with this particular MCP server, you can simply click on deploy template. Once you click on deploy template, we have different type of authentications available. So for Notion, we know like they have OAuth available. So you can simply click on connect with Notion. It will redirect you to the Notion auth page. Once you select the workspaces or teams which you want to use with your current MCP server, you can simply grant access to Contexa. We will fetch your path and save it along with this particular MCP server. Once that is done, you can name the MCP server. We also provide a basic configuration, like what region you want to deploy this server. For some sort of compliances, so you have min replica, max replica, like all small dev things. We also allow users to configure tracing. So they can simply enable tracing by entering Contexa API key. Tracing help you to uh, track what are the events which are happening in this particular MCP server when you use with different clients. Let's say you are using with Cursor, Claude, or Contexa Playground. You can see that which sessions are going on, what are the tool calls which are happening, what is the error rate or success rate which is going on. So once you are comfortable, you can simply click on deploy. It will start the deployment for this particular MCP server. it usually takes 1 minute to deploy the MCP server. Once that is done, uh, you can track this MCP server in this page where all the MCP servers which are available or deployed by a user are listed. This is not the only way of deploying the MCP server. We allow users, like ContexaAI is very flexible. You can bring your own MCP server code from GitHub. You can simply import it from GitHub. There are few prerequisites that you need to follow, like there should be contexa config file in the root folder using which we will identify the configs which are needed for deployment. You can fill out the basic information, and simply on the second page, like what are the environment variables which are needed for this MCP server, you can add them and enable tracing, all of that, which we saw earlier. One interesting feature that we have, you can simply bring your MCP open API spec from any SaaS product which are out there. So for example, I'm using WizCommerce for some of the use cases that I have, but they don't have MCP server as of now. So I can simply go to their documentation and see, like, okay, I want to create MCP server out of this. So I can simply copy the MCP open API specs from WizCommerce. And once I have that spec, I can name this server as, let's say, WizCom. I will upload the open API specs. I have already downloaded it and saved it in one file. So once I have the open API specs, I will upload it here, and all the API endpoints that is there in the open API specs, we convert them into the tool. You can filter them by different HTTP method types, and you can keep only those MCP tools, server tools, which you need, and you can disable all other tools, or vice versa. If you are not comfortable with the description, so for example, this get attributes API has a description as list attribute. This might not go well with the LLM, so you can simply edit the description from here, and or like you can use our small AI feature which will generate a description for this MCP tool. So let's say it is generating the description. You can save it and use it. So once you are comfortable with this tools which you need and configure all the tools, we will ask you, we will fetch all the auth schema which is needed to power this MCP server, for which commerce we require to have API key authentication. So we fetch that from open API specs and ask user to enter the API key. It can be anything, like it can be bearer token authentication, or username password authentication. It can be anything. It will be populated accordingly, and then again you have an option to enable tracing. Once you are comfortable, you can again simply click on deploy MCP server. I have already deployed this server for demo purpose, so I will not do that again. So these are three main ways of deploying or creating your MCP servers. Now we have one interesting feature. So let's say if you have multiple MCP servers deployed, you can create a custom MCP server out of it. So what is custom MCP server? So let's say you have a use case where you want to fetch all the users or recent customers from WizCommerce API and sync that to HubSpot. So I will select one tool from WizCommerce, which is get customer, and one tool from HubSpot, that which is create objects from HubSpot MCP server, and create it as a single MCP server which can be used using one endpoint. So I will name it as, let's say, Wiz plus HubSpot custom MCP server. I'll give a name, some description, and I will click on next. So here we can see all the MCP servers which we have available on Context on your organization or user account. It will be listed here. So let's say I'm selecting one tool from WizCommerce API, that is custom get customers, and some of the tools from, I'll select some random tool, let's say these tools, and I will have a preview of all these tools which I have selected. Let's say get customers from WizCommerce, HubSpot get from HubSpot, and all of that. Once I'm comfortable with this, I will create a single endpoint which will be used for this particular use case. So once I create this, I will be redirected to details page. So these are the tools I have selected: get customers, get user detail, list objects, search objects. I can do basic editing, like I can go back and add more tools and all of that if needed. You can use these tools with ContexaAI Playground. So we have integrated Playground. I'll come back to this later. You can use this with cursor, simply import it, Claude, WinSub, and VS Code. You can delete this, and this is the endpoint which is available. You can take this endpoint with any agent, MCP compatible agent, where only these tools will be available. So now let's go to the playground. So in this playground, let's say we have a custom MCP server. So this is the custom MCP server that I have created. So let me try to select all these tools quickly. I'll click on chat now. So all these tools from this server has been selected. This is custom server. I will create a new chat thread, and we have some basic features available. Let's say you can while testing the custom MCP or any of the MCP server, you can use different models. We currently provide OpenAI and Anthropic's models which are available. You can simply change the temperature and basic settings. You can even put a system prompt, and yeah, let's go and ask something. So I have already created one small prompt for this use case. So I'm asking this agent to find the customers from WeCommerce and sync them to HubSpot. So it should call the get customers tool from WeCommerce. Yes. So it is calling the WizCommerce API under the hood using the tool, which is page one. We have human in the loop just to keep things in control. You can accept or reject this tool. So once I approve this tool, it will start the execution. So now this is adding all these customers which are fetched in the HubSpot. So it is adding these customers as a contacts. So there are few required fields which are not provided by WizCommerce. So it is retrying it with the different way. Okay, so this is succeeded. So we completed the small use case. So we are comfortable. Okay, so this is going well, right? So you can pick this configuration and use in your agent. So let's see if we have all the customers synced here. So this is it. And let's say if you start using this custom MCP server or any of the MCP server in your own agent, yeah, and you want to see what is going on, like what things are happening under the hood, you can simply use our tracing feature. It lists all the tool calls, server calls which are happening on the platform. So here we go, like all the total tool call, what is the success rate, failure rate, all the tools calls by session IDs. And then here, let's say you can filter out by tool call, tool list, and all the MCP server lifecycle methods. So currently we created a we called HubSpot batch create object MCP tool that is from HubSpot server. What is the time of that? What is the session ID? And what is the input arguments? And what is the response for that? So yeah, that's it. That is about tracing. We have some exciting features as Rupesh mentioned, like which are coming up. Like we are launching our SDK. We are adding a support from prompt and resources. And yeah, that's it from my side. That's a small demo that we have. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to demo Contexa. Rupesh, Akshay, looks like a really interesting platform. You guys, I know you said you started working on this just in April as a company, so you've been at this 3 or 4 months. How long has the service been available, and where where are you kind of expecting to go next?
So Shannon, we started in April exploring the MCP as a protocol. We started development like 1.5 months back, like 45-50 days. Yeah, and like where are we heading? Like Rupesh, Cannons.
So Shannon, the next thing that we're heading for is we want people to create mini agents or mini apps on our platform using these custom MCP servers. The idea is that the agent should not be different from the server. The server itself should become agentic, right? And people should be able to, carry these mini apps, mini agents with them anywhere they want. So that is the idea. We are also going to launch our SDK so that people can use Contexa created MCP servers in any of the agents that they have created. And we're going to allow other primitives like prompts, resources, sampling as well. Sampling is actually a huge thing in our roadmap because that itself will make our servers agentic. So, yep, that are all the things that are there in the pipeline.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I'm so kind of bought into this idea of like that agents, MCPs will effectively become agents. It's all kind of a very similar thing. We've yet to kind of figure out what are the good patterns, exactly what an agent and an MCP server looks like. But I'm kind of curious. So as you guys have launched this is like whenever I talk to anyone in the MCP space, especially if you're creating like products or whatever, it's like, what are you seeing in terms of like users of MCP? Like, who are the people using it? Like, what's like, are you seeing people getting like, kind of like significant value out of it, or are they struggling? Like, just how is it going with your users?
So Darren, what we have seen is that once people are able to create their servers or create what they want or what they want to achieve from the servers, then there is significant value add. Like, for example, I know people who have been creating these MCP servers for all their trading platforms and managing all of the trading with just using Cursor. But the problem is that people are not able to create these servers the way they want to, because as we mentioned, right, there are a lot of steps to get there. So we do see that people are using and creating these servers, but we still have a long way to go before something useful can start coming out of it. A majority of our users are also developers, right? Who just want to get to the finish line very, very fast. Like the iterations should be really fast, and that is what we are also concentrating on.
So that, I mean, it's like one of the things you'll hear people pushing back with MCPs. They'll say, well, like, hey, I'm writing this agent. I'm already writing some Python. Why don't I just use a method? Why don't I just do a native tool calling, call a Python method? Like, what am I really getting out of this MCP stuff?
So the main thing is the standardization that we're getting out of MCP, right? Create once and use everywhere. And this is just not about tool calling. Like, people haven't explored other primitives as well. All of the MCP servers that you see right now are just API wrappers that are just wrapping up your APIs into tools. Like, there could be orchestration of those tools as well if you use the prompts well, right? You can just include prompts in your server itself that will orchestrate the tool calls. Or you can use sampling to, chip in LLM calls between your subsequent tool calls. So all these other primitives haven't been explored. I think MCP has a great potential, but it's a starting phase that all of us are in. I think all of us have the onus to kind of actually develop and take it to a stage where it becomes really, really useful.
Yeah. I mean, I like that. I think that's an important point that people overlook is like MCP is not just tool calling. There's a lot.
Yes.
There's a lot more to it. No?
Yes.
Well, that was great. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for joining and staying up late in Mumbai to chat with our audience. And good luck with Contexa. Sounds exciting.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks, Darren, for having us here.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Well, this should be fun. Our next talk is from Craig Jellick, who is our co-founder at Acorn. Craig has been working with Darren and I for at least, 15 years. So this is like heavy disclaimer period. We're going to be, I promise, lots of softball questions, lots of easy questions. Oh my gosh, Craig, that seems amazing. What incredible work. No, it should be fun. Craig, thanks for doing this. I realized it was a bit of short notice. We had someone drop out, so kind of jumped in and filled the slot. But I'm looking forward to the conversation. MCP gateways are literally, something we're hearing about just in the last month. I've been hearing about it everywhere. And so I think, this is a great opportunity to kind of talk about MCP Gateway and then share the open source project that you're leading.
Sure. Yeah, I wanted that because I was so opposed to Craig coming on here because it's pitching our own software. It's like, this is what we're, Shannon and I would start our startup or whatever. So I was like, no, I can't stand it. Like, I don't want to pitch our own software. I'm very much a technology person. I hate to sell anything. Shannon's actually sales background. But my big justification here is like, I just want to make it abundantly clear. Everything, like, it's open source. So everything to do kind of what we're doing. You can download this and run it yourself. It's open source. Yeah. Anyways,
all right, dude.
Hand it over to Craig, and then I promised Craig I would ask very difficult questions afterwards.
Well, I'm excited.
Awesome,
all right. So keep the slides pretty short here, as I think, as you mentioned, gateways are talked about a lot, so we kind of understand what we're getting. Sorry, click over here. So, but just to level set, Obot is an open source enterprise platform for managing and securing MCP servers. The key things it's going to give you is the ability for centralized IT to own, curate, and manage that centralized catalog of MCP servers. It gives end users the ability to access and to connect to those servers, whether it's through our chat platform or through the client of their choice. It's also a hosting platform. So if your enterprise is looking to, run and host their own MCP servers, you can just leverage that ability that's built directly into Obot. And finally, the gateway aspect makes it so that we're proxying all communication to the MCP servers through our gateway, which gives you centralized observability, security, and compliance. And then once again, we're hitting on very much on the open source aspect of this. So the other thing I wanted to share in the slides really quickly is just the architecture. So as I go through the demo, you have a decent idea of sort of what you're looking at here. Pretty simple slide here. At the top, you can see we have our own chat platform, Obot Chat, but really you can connect from any MCP-enabled agent, such as Cursor, Claude, or VS Code. And then the three main components of Obot are the LLM gateway, which is primarily used by Obot Chat, the catalog, which is how administrators, manage MCP servers available, manage access control to them, but then also how users discover the servers that are available to them. And then finally, the gateway. So anytime you're connecting to an MCP server using Obot, you're going through the gateway, and that gateway is proxying to either remote MCP servers that could be external to your organization or ones hosted within your organization, either in Obot or internally in your own cloud infrastructure. So that does it for sort of the architecture. The only other thing I want to share here is just where you can go to find out more information. Obot.ai is our landing page. Importantly, you can go to chat.obot.ai to try out the end user experience, free to use. You get a pretty nice chat experience with baked in MCP integration. And then to get started running the open source version yourself, just go to docs.obot.ai, and that'll drop you into just sort of the quick start on how to get this going. And all of that is linked from obot.ai itself. So with that said, and sort of the slides done, I'll jump into the demo here. And I'm zoomed in pretty far, so hopefully everything renders well. But I wanted to actually start with the end user experience, just to level set on sort of, the capabilities that a organization using Obot, sort of what their end users can expect to see and do. So here you see a pretty familiar chat interface, right? So I'll just say hello here to kick off the chat, and you'll see just basic communication. Now, the other things you can see sort of on the left, we have a project-based structure, rather. You'll note that you can come in and configure a project, name, description, of course, but then also sort of instructions for a system prompt to, control exactly how the project behaves. You can add knowledge files at a project level. And then sort of as you're using the project and we have a memory feature, the memories will show up here and you can manage those from here. And if I cancel out of configuration, we'll see we're here looking at the chat. Now, the chats here basically are just the history of your chats within this project. Tasks are interesting. I'll kind of circle back to those. Those are basically very sort of simple automated chats so that you can do things repetitively. I don't know if you heard that ding there, but I'll close my email. And finally, connectors are where users can discover MCP servers. So I will just drop in and add the Gmail MCP server here, and I'll click connect. And we should see here, okay, authenticating. This is actually a server we've written ourselves and to talk to the Gmail API. I'm going to connect it to my test email here and continue, and we're good to go. So now you can see I have this Gmail MCP server set up. I can jump in here and discover what tools are available. You can see sort of the things you would expect. This is also where I can enable or disable tools. Here, we'll just ask it, what is my most recent email? And there shouldn't be anything surprising here for folks that have been using MCP servers in chat. You'll see it make that tool call and get it back here. So just to level set, that's sort of the basics of the functionality. Within this catalog, you can kind of see this is what I as a user have access to. And we'll jump into how administrators control that access later. But you can see here sort of all the different MCP servers. This is our curated catalog from open source and external, like remote servers that we found were particularly good. I'm demoing from our demo environment just so I don't, leak any information of real users from chat.obot.ai, so you can see someone's testing a HubSpot integration. So from here, I think the next thing I wanted to show is just what this looks like. Oh, I'm sorry. What this looks like to connect from other clients. So for that, we have this My Connectors dashboard. And here you can just kind of see, this is just sort of a native view into our catalog, all the entries we have. You can see I previously connected to Gmail and Tably up here. And if I just click connect here, we'll see, here's the URL. So I can drop this URL into any particular MCP client and be off and running. I'm going to copy it, and then we'll jump over to VS Code and do the same thing. So I'm going to add a server here in VS Code. Drop this URL in, just call it Gmail. And you can see it pop up over here. It's running and has 16 tools. So now it wants to do that authentication round. It's going to jump me out to same thing, OAuth flow. And we're off and running here. We can explore the tools. You can see the Gmail server has all these tools here. So we'll just say the same thing here. What's my most recent email? And get prompted to allow that. And once again, we're off and running. It's going to read the email, so it did a list. Now it's going to do a read, and it'll give me back some details. So great, sort of connecting to MCP servers in the catalog from either our native chat or from an external client. From here, I will just circle back super quickly to give you a super quick demo into tasks. So a task here is just sort of basic. I can give it steps. It's going to use the same MCP servers or connectors that are in the project here. And I could do something like read my most recent email and turn it into a haiku. Haiku. And we'll run that. See it do the same list emails.
Craig, while you're demoing this, I had a quick question. I don't think it's totally clear necessarily where this is all running. So this is software. You're running it on, you're hosting this, obviously. But for a user that deploys this is software they're running on their Kubernetes infrastructure?
Correct, yes. And you can install it on Kubernetes. We have a simple start that is just a Docker run that'll kind of run it all. If you wanted to try it out, just run it locally on your Docker desktop. But sort of production grade setup is expected to be you deploy this into a Kubernetes cluster. We have a Helm chart to do so.
Yeah, and I just want to throw, because it's super cool. One thing that's great about is you can just simply Docker run this. This is all open source. The kind of crummy thing about all of MCP is there's so much OAuth involved. And so it's for demo purposes, you really have to set up all the OAuth beforehand and everything. It's not easy to just go Docker run, show it. It's nothing with authentication will work.
Mm-hmm. So yes, with that's sort of, quick demo of the end user experience. Now, what is the administrator seeing? Well, we'll jump over to that. sorry, this is actually, sorry. So I am an administrator as well, so I'll just open the admin dashboard here. And again, so first thing, the admin has deployed Obot internally. Probably the first thing they're going to do is set up an auth provider. So you can see sort of our supported auth providers here. And these are typical, pretty easy to add, as well as we encounter users with different use cases. The second thing you're obviously going to want to set up for the chat experience is a model provider. So this is, we basically have a plugin system to integrate with any of the major model providers. And this is what will ultimately power that Obot chat experience. Once you have those two things together, you're sort of off and running, you can start working on your catalog. So every instance of Obot ships with our official catalog, which you can see here. We're adding to that all the time, but you can start adding your own servers as well. So you can either add manually from the web console here, or you can add them from a Git server. And in fact, our official catalog is just this GitHub repo. And everything in here is open source too. So you can pull useful things from there as necessary. But basically what you'll end up seeing here as you build out your own sort of GitOps powered MCP catalog, you'll define them this way. And as you can use PRs to review, and as they get merged, they'll automatically be synced into Obot itself. So I'm going to close that so I don't keep clicking in the wrong place. So here we are, we're looking at the catalog. Just to give you an example of adding a server, when I click add a server, you see three options. So single user, multi-user, and remote server. And this is really sort of meeting the MCP ecosystem where it is right now. So, what does single user server even mean? Well, most of the MCP servers that are out in the world were written using sort of the first protocol, standard IO. And when you have a standard IO server, you really, that's not multi-tenant in any way. You really need an instance per user using it. So the idea is if you set up a single user server, when someone connects to it, this is completely transparent to the end user, but they'll get their own instance of that server. Multi-user server is, okay, you've written a good server, it's scalable, it can handle multi-tenancy, it can handle more than one user connecting at the time. It's written using the streamable HTTP protocol. So you would set it up that way. And then finally, remote server is, I don't need to deploy anything. This is running somewhere in the world. And I just want to expose it in the catalog so that users can connect to it, and so that I can get all those advanced, auditing and usage capabilities that I mentioned earlier. So I'm just going to very quickly add a remote server here, and I will grab linears. So Craig's linear demo. You can see you can give a nice description. I'm not going to do that now. I'm just going to drop the URL in for this. So this is Linear's MCP server. So it's OAuth enabled. So really all it takes is dropping that URL in, and you're off and running. Now this is asking me how I want to expose it, what users I want to expose it to. You can see we have three teams here: marketing, engineering, and the AI engineering team. However, we also have a rule that just exposes everyone to everything to everyone. And that's enabled in this system. So that's enough for me. I can just click continue. And now this server is in the catalog. Speaking of access control, I'll jump over to that and show that super quickly. This is not the, there's not a ton to show here, but this is just the idea that it's, you are controlling who has access to what servers, by way of the intersection of servers and users and groups. So if you see here, we can kind of scroll through different users. Group support is actually, we just merged the first piece of that yesterday for GitHub, and we'll iterate through sort of the other auth providers in the coming days. But the idea there would be you'd be able to search for groups backed by your auth provider and just drop them in here. This particular rule is a catch everything rule. So this is going to just say everyone that's able to log into Obot, and and just let them have access to every single server. but you can also do very specific servers. So that's access control. Now, last thing I want to do is just kind of show that. Let's just drop in that Craig's linear demo. So I'm going to click connect to server. And it's going to prompt me to authenticate. This has bounced me out to linear. Once again, we're OAuthing things. And we're all set. So now I can say, what linear issues do I have? I might have needed to say projects instead, actually. We'll see what it does here. Cool, no assigned issue, that's fine. I'm not a linear user. I just create an account for the purpose of this, purposes of demoing. But I did that just so we can start to explore some of the other features here. Most interesting, I think, is audit logs. So in the audit log screen, you can see exactly what's going on within your system. So most recently, you can see I literally just did a call to list my issues, so I can check it out here and see all the details. I think the last demo had something very similar. But this is sort of a cross system, and it takes its inspiration from the logging dashboards you see in all the modern cloud consoles, as well as things like Datadog. So you can kind of see a stack of the different calls that are being made here. And you can filter by sort of anything you see on the table, you're able to filter by as well. So that's just giving you sort of that bird's eye view, letting you debug, understand what's going on. Usage is kind of like that view of, okay, who's doing what are the most what's being used the most in my system, whether it's tool calls or servers in general. Things in the system are skewed because it's actually our testing system. So you'll see sort of, focus on a lot of testing of certain servers at different times. Get response times, either average, sort of, we can see that whenever Firecrawl is called, it always takes a long time, which makes sense. It's going out and scraping a page. And then sort of this is just very specifically over whatever time frame was selected, individual tool calls. So that's sort of giving you your insights into usage of the MCP servers. Additionally, you have this view into chat threads. So whenever someone's using the chat experience, you can see, exactly sort of, what they're saying and what's going on there. So this is just very specifically for admins in case they need to jump in and debug what's going on. Last thing I'll show on this front is filters. So I dropped a filter in here. A filter is basically, you can inject this into, it's a webhook. So you can set up your own webhook, and that webhook will be called anytime a call to an MCP server is made. And you can set up different selectors, right? So a selector is basically saying what tool method what method. Most often it's probably going to be tool calls, and then what identifiers tools too. So if you just wanted to be on a very specific tool name rather than all tools, you could specify that there. And you can either set it up to hit any MCP server or very specific ones as well. So that's sort of like, the first phase of that MCP guardrail capability. And the one I set up here is actually, it just kind of detects for the word hacking and will reject the call if it hits it. I think eventually we'll add built-in filters, but the idea is sort of maximum flexibility, webhook based. Folks can basically bring their own and have full control over that.
Craig, you're running out of time, buddy. I think
I
think you've hit most of the key stuff.
Yeah.
Anything else you need to touch on?
Yeah, no, that's it. Last thing I think is for anyone using chat, the admin has full control over sort of the chat experience. So from that splash screen to the system prompt to what models are exposed. So yeah, that kind of does it for the demo. Once again, I think the last thing I'll say is obot.ai to land on, or chat.obot.ai to give it a try yourself.
Awesome. Thanks for diving in so much depth. I don't know if you touched on this though, but you built this with a very clear sort of enterprise type expectation. So what do you think the target market is for this? Who should buy it? Who should use it? Who should download it? Use the open source? Like, what's your pitch?
Yeah, so we were just at a pretty big conference called AI4, and we saw a lot of interest there. And we saw interest from sort of relatively big organizations with a forward-looking architecture team. So they kind of see MCP on the horizon. They want to be prepared for it. They want to have a plan in place. And so this really appealed to them because they just want to have that ability to control and manage and have visibility into the system, from day one. So, we've talked to companies where they're managing MCP server access through a document in SharePoint. That's how they kind of expose the catalog. So just kind of bringing some order to that chaos is really where it starts. So, the reason, like Darren said, open source is in our DNA. We just want it super easy for people to pick up, try out. You can run it locally, you can run it in Kubernetes cluster, whatever works for you.
So talk a little bit about how you solve the proxying stuff. So you built a proxy to proxy every single MCP, whether it's yours or it's running somewhere else or it's like a third-party hosted one. How did you do that? Like, what's the proxy? Is it using an existing service mesh or something, or did you build something that new that you're actually running?
We built something that new, and that's been sort of like an amazing learning experience because, like, at the end of the day, if you can imagine the proxies here and the clients here, the proxy is a server to the client and a client to the downstream server. So sort of just being in there in the mix, like we've just have touched absolutely every single part of the protocol and sort of like hit all of those interesting and weird use cases. So at the end of the day, it's code we wrote very specifically. Bits of it are built on top of Darren's MCP client, Nanobot. But yeah, just kind of homegrown. Started off, there are bits we're leveraging when we run sort of one of those single user servers. We're actually using another open source project called Super Gateway. Or no, I'm sorry, we converted to Nanobot.
I was just gonna say, it's fascinating because like if anyone's followed me on Twitter, I would complain about the Go SDK. And the reason why, because that's still being developed, is we had to build our own Go, because everything's in Go for the proxy. We had to build our own Go implementation of MCP. And it's quite different from what you would see in the SDKs that exist out there, because those are very oriented towards writing the server or writing the client, whereas we're right in the middle of the gateway. So it gets very low level and very kind of technical. And so we've become quite experts on the protocol.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I want to throw out a couple things, because if anyone knows like us, like our team or whatever, we previously did Rancher and things, and this is kind of like in our DNA of creating these open source projects, these platforms or whatever. And so when MCP came around, like I'm so ridiculously bought into the idea of MCP. Like it checks off all the boxes for me. I just think it's going to be smashing success. It has been. I think it has a great future. So it's like, it's just like I really do believe that there's like a new platform for AI. Like, where are we going? Like, we need this new substrate or whatever, and MCP is it. And so what's really fascinating to me is when we started building this, of like, well, what do we really need? One of the things we realized is like it's not so much about the hosting. I think the world is distributed, and you can put things wherever the heck you want. You start looking at the protocol. The power is like the protocol, and like so. We saw this in the infrastructure space before with like service mesh. Like when you get in the middle of the communication path, you have so much visibility and things like that. And so we really focused on like what can we get out of the fact that we have full visibility to what's going on in the protocol. Because as this evolves into MCPs doing agents, you can imagine all of that agentic traffic is all going to be going over MCP2. So it's like we have full ability. So it doesn't really matter where you're running these agents. The third party, you're hosting them yourself, or you're hosting them on Obot. Obot can run it too. It doesn't really matter. We still have the same visibility to the protocol, and kind of can really see what's going on. Because like one of the big things about AI is just people are always concerned about kind of like, what is it doing? Like there's these parts where AI fundamentally can choose its own path And so what happens and all that stuff. But I don't know. I've been super fascinated with this stuff. This is like a really fun project, and I love that it's open source. Anybody can run this. Just try it out. It's pretty cool.
Craig, on that topic, like just as you had, coming out of a conference and talking to people about this, what are you hearing from like the operational teams that are thinking about like things like observability and tracing and like what do people, I'm running an MCP server. What do I care about? What are like the 3 things you need to think about when you're running an MCP server? It's a multi-tenant thing. It's starting to scale up and people are using it heavily internally. What should I worry about?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think honestly, the folks we were talking to be honest, they are early and they're at the point where like, man, I'm just starting to think about this problem. So operationally, they're sort of like just discovering that themselves. Now, I will say we had some interesting talks as well with folks that are like wanting to build end user facing public MCP servers. And that's just like a whole other sort of like level of, I mean, at the end of the day, it's the same, but you just don't, you're thinking about the problem differently because it's exposed to the world. And so your concerns for security are even higher. But at the end of the day, it was those key things. It was observability, it was security, it was sort of understanding when things go wrong and how to resolve them. And honestly, another one was like, just a big problem was, how do we make it so that our users can discover and consume these things? Like that seemed to be a core problem that folks were thinking about too.
Well, it's interesting because you give your demo today, you started with the chat side, which I was surprised. I kind of sort of assumed it's a gateway. You're going to start show me the admin side and how do I onboard MCPs and kind of put some security around them and expose them. But you're like, no, and I think this is maybe from the conversations as well. It's like half of the in an enterprise, in an organization, it's like 90% of the people are probably not adding config files to Claude desktop to get access to an MCP or thing. Like you're putting the work into building these, as Rupesh sort of was saying, MCP all the things. Every application has an MCP endpoint or an MCP agent. It's the consumption that's going to be part of the thing. Yeah. And I know listening to people talk, I mean, people have a very wildly varying types of internal chat clients right now. There's custom home built ones. There's people who are trying to use like Microsoft Copilot or OpenAI Enterprise or Claude Enterprise. There's a lot of people who are trying. I mean, there's Goose out there. I've seen some people kind of, the team at Block gave a great demo of how they're using Goose at the last MCP Summit as a way to access these things. But then they were like, oh, it was pretty tough for non-developers. We had to really start pre-building in the MCP servers because we didn't really want them to go and add them, because then all of a sudden we're getting tons of support calls and stuff. So I do think there's going to be, I think it was an interesting choice, but I kind of agree, like showing how people are going to use this stuff and start to stream them together. I still worry that people are going to struggle to figure out which MCP server to use to solve problems. And I like, some of what Rupesh was showing earlier. It was like, oh, pick a couple server, tools and then build a new MCP server. I think there's a lot of opportunity to get this closer to people like me who, we can probably vibe code an MCP server now, given how easy it's getting. But the reality is just managing file systems and dealing with stuff. I don't know what I'm doing.
Disagrees with you.
No, thumbs up. No, it was I think it's really interesting, that layer of consumption.
It's because it's hard. Where like I struggle with MCP and the fact that it's very, very developer oriented. And then so I kind of like, when I talk to developers, they're like, it's taking over the world. And I try to point out like, hey, I believe that. I believe it's going that way. But that you have to realize everyone doing MCP right now, most of it is like developers touching this. But that's not the end goal. Is like, sorry, I don't want to say most of it. It's like, because I talk to developers, it's like we're all hacking on MCP servers and putting into VS Code, but it's like the end goal is really to put it pretty much like into a chatbot or maybe a server-side agent that's a little more complex. But like, so it's like what a lot of the enterprise and things are doing is it's like, it's not so much that they're writing MCP servers because they want to get them to their developers. They're writing MCP servers because they're trying to get it to like the end user who's running, Claude desktop or something like that. They're trying to, because like they see like once one team built something, they're like, oh, I hooked up this one internal API to AI. Look how amazing this is. And then they want to give it to their other team members or whatever. But I was just going to say, one thing I definitely see with people is that it's so easy to write MCP servers. Like there's not really a challenge in writing them because we already see there's just thousands and thousands. It's not very difficult to write them. And so it's like what enterprises or whatever are struggling or starting to see is like this wave of like, holy crap, everyone's writing these things. What the heck do I do? And like how did
I
they
had a person tell me recently they had 1,000 new MCP servers created.
I can't believe that. It's happening. It reminds me of like back in like the Docker days or whatever, where they're like.
It's funny though because I say that, and then we were at that. Yeah, I was at that same conference that Craig spoke at, and standing there talking to people as they came by to talk. At least 70, probably like 60% of the people didn't even know what MCP was. And this is an AI conference with 8,000 people there to like. It was not a consumer level conference. This was it cost a lot of money to come. It was a enterprise AI conference. These were people who worked at companies you would have heard of, and they were there to learn about AI, but they didn't know what MCP was. And so, and I'm talking like more than half. It was like, what is MCP? I see MCP, but I don't know what that means. So I do think, it's like people are either completely already bought in and totally get it, or it's still hasn't quite penetrated the core IT teams, the non-AI engineer, the more business type users who are, doing operational stuff. So we got to wrap, guys. We've been chatting for too long. Craig, thank you so much for joining us today and stepping in. And we really appreciate the demo. Darren, as always, it's been a lot of fun, and we will see everyone else in 2 weeks. We're off next week, so we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.